Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Rosalie Starenko, and I am a third-year master's student in landscape architecture. I would like to begin by first thanking the Columbus Foundation and the Knowlton School for their generosity, the Knowlton faculty for their invaluable advice. Thank you to Justin Parcher in particular, to the people and organizations who aided me in my research, the Nordic Research Network for Architectural Anthropology, Emilia Cruz Bandao of the Chalmers Institute of Technology, Jennifer Mack, Anna Rudholm and Illumination of the Planning and Parks Departments. And last but not least, thank you to my dear friends Charlie, Christina, Hannah, and Johannes, without whom this trip would be entirely impossible. And so, thank you, Gothenburg. I traveled to Gothenburg because I wanted to widen my understanding of landscape architecture. To be perfectly candid, at the end of last year, I was disenchanted with what I had so far experienced in the discipline. So much so that I had considered taking on another master's degree in city and regional planning. This project speaks to that frustration and to the ways in which the issues of what we understand as landscape rarely fall into one field of study. The plurality of landscape led me here. I think this is perhaps not the typical scene that Americans imagine when they think of Sweden. It's maybe not even what some Swedes imagine. And that disconnected perception related to urban form unintentionally became one of the driving themes in this project. In writing my proposal, I laid out many different yet related questions, all jargon admittedly, that I thought this trip might be able to answer. In the end, my question was this. It is widely understood that public space or green space can act as a connecting ground for humanity. The plaza, the commons, etc. I wonder, can a park do the same thing? In fact, can it even contribute to less segregation? Can it be a landscape tool for helping people relocate from one place to somewhere completely new? Some quick background, Gothenburg is located on the west coast of Sweden, bisected by the Göta River, which empties into the North Sea. It's a pretty industrial place and is recognized as the largest port in Scandinavia. Currently, there are approximately 573,000 people living in the municipal area, which is roughly half the size of Stockholm, though that number is expected to grow by about 25% within the next 15 years. 25% of current residents are foreign-born, and this high percentage of immigrants is what piqued my interest in Gothenburg, especially in a place that boasts both environmental and social sustainability. The majority of immigrants come to Sweden from Muslim-majority nations, and many are refugees. Through anecdotal and journalistic evidence, I knew that Sweden's reaction to new residents wasn't always rosy, and that there was some deep-rooted prejudice at play. Gothenburg is one of the most segregated cities in Europe, and the prejudice toward groups of people with non-Swedish backgrounds or non-Swedish behavior was discussed in depth while I was visiting. Some literature suggests that the urban form of the city is a contributor, whether that is related to accessibility, to amenities and services, to public transportation, or to a lack of spaces for co-presence among all residents of the city. I was interested in the latter, but all the tools I found were related to architecture, planning, and urban design, not landscape architecture. So I went to see what I could see. When I arrived, I first explored. These photos were taken in and near the city center where fewer immigrants live, yet statistically speaking, is more dangerous in the suburbs. This guy was probably really mad at me for taking this photo because they really don't like it when you take pictures. But when I was there in May, the sun had just come out after the end of winter, and so whenever you came across somebody, they would stop and just try to soak up as much sun as they could. I had originally planned on spending time in just one Gothenburg neighborhood, Biskopsgården, which is in close proximity to the large Svartamassa public park seen in dark green on the west side of the neighborhood. But after meeting with professors, planners, and landscape architects, I came away with a broader understanding that gave me a more general sense of the urban injustices at work. So I also focused my efforts on the neighborhoods of Hammarkullen and Angered, where architecture studios at the Chalmers Institute were working with the residents to implement various small-scale, tactical urbanism-like interventions. What connects these places are the structures built under the Million Homes program. This national post-war initiative had the goal of building 1 million homes in suburban Sweden, then with a population of only 8 million, in 10 years to offer urban living at a reasonable price. 1/3 of these buildings were meant to be 30 to 40 stories tall, and many of these larger structures became empty as people moved to single dwellings, and so immigrants and refugees were able to move in. Due to being built on cheap peripheral land, these new communities experience isolation, and the poor upkeep of the structures leads to stigmatization. Because these places aren't as beautiful as the surrounding city, they are perceived to be dangerous, which of course leads to more isolation. What became apparent to me was that my perception of beauty and danger and disconnect was not the same as the Swedish perception. What was deemed as ill-maintained looks relatively clean and connected to me. And when I spoke with one of Gothenburg's landscape architects, Rosalie, who works for the equivalent of the Parks and Recreation Department, she also spoke of this perception of beauty. She was keen on the term social sustainability, which boils down to a sense of justice, equality, and good living conditions for all. And within Gothenburg, this is a part of the day-to-day dialogue between planners and residents, asking them what they need to feel like they're home. When I spoke with groups of people learning English after moving to Sweden, this is again what they said was most important to them, feeling welcome and feeling like they were home. So, back to the original question, can green space equal equality? After this project, I don't know. These are complex, layered questions that I'm not quite equipped to answer, and I don't think I was asking the right ones. Understanding cultural experiences of landscape cannot be brought down to just green space. And the thing about park is that it's such a dumb word. And yes, that's not just what we as landscape architects do, but still, what can we do in the face of these social issues? I found this note in my research book, and for the record, I do think that I'm in the right field, but I think that something is lacking in the practical use of landscape architecture, and landscape design was missing from this project, but it does have a place in it. Like planning, shouldn't we also have a social mandate when considering sites? In the end, I think that all I can offer up is that we as designers must be thoughtful and kind, and we must be strong and steadfast in our opinions and aware, and we can leave no space for greed. And we should pay attention to the planners and geographers and urban designers that we work with, and remember that ultimately we design for people. Thank you.